Hi, and welcome to Bloody Good Reads. We are on episode 103 in our long journey to 200 episodes. So, yeah, let's just get 200 more guests on this podcast. Why not? Let's do it. This week on the podcast, we're sticking with horror, but we are going to go to a bit of space horror. A little bit like Alien. Yeah, it's a little bit different than we normally do. So this week's guest has a brand new book out. Just came out in April, I believe, and is also a YA writer. But also, I haven't listened to her previous book, Dead Silence. I'm loving it. It has a lot of deep space, claustrophobic feeling to it. It's brilliant listen and a brilliant read. So welcome to the podcast this week, S.A Barnes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
No worries. So, what we'd like to do here on Bloody Good Reads is force authors to pick 3 books they love, because I am a bastard. But what we'd like to ask every guest, because you do well to listen to. As I ask every guest, as you are a writer of horror, how did you get into the horror genre?
That is a great question, because when I wrote Dead Silence, I didn't think that I was writing horror. I thought I was writing a sci-fi thriller. And then apparently it went a little too dark for that. But I grew up reading horror. I mean, my parents loved to tell the story of me in 5th or 6th grade reading Stephen King, because I had read through everything in the tiny library that our town had and gotten permission to go into the adult side. And I picked up, of course, Stephen King. And their rule was I could read anything I wanted as long as I didn't wake him up at night with nightmares. So I read a ton of horror as a kid, and then I don't know, I guess I just didn't think about the fact that I could write that. I was, writing romance and writing YA, and again, I thought I was writing a sci-fi thriller, but I think that horror background sort of sticks in there. It's very formative when you read so much of that at a young age. Of course, I loved, the shows like Buffy and things like that, which I think made a big difference too. All of those are horror based. So I have loved horror my whole life. I sort of fell into it as a writer. Okay.
Because it does have... See, when I originally was given kind of the pitch for the book to kind of review it, I thought sci-fi. And I thought sci-fi horror. Okay, I get it. Very kind of Aliens. Is that ongoing argument of is it horror? Is it sci-fi? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but kind of listening to the audiobook of Dead Silence, you can tell the horror influence in there as well. The setup is really good. But cool. I mean, was you always kind of wanting to be a writer, or was that not kind of... Was that path to get down?
So what I work at a high school during the week in the library, and and I help in the creative writing classes and stuff. And what I always tell the kids is, back in the old days, there wasn't the internet, things weren't as accessible. You didn't have information at your fingertips. You couldn't just reach out and put a comment on someone's Instagram account or tweet, John Green or whatever. So I didn't really know how writers became writers. I knew I wanted to write a book, but it was really just more like because I love reading so much and books have meant so much to me over the years. I just wanted to see if I could do it. So I don't think I ever thought of it as a career. I was just wanted to write a book and just see if I could do the thing that I love. And from there, then it was sort of addicting. You start telling a story, and I always say that to me, writing is like reading. It's just only you're the one that's determining things. It's like reading intensified. So there are times when I'm writing something and I'm like, thinking about, I can't wait to find out what happens next. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's me. I have to figure out what happens next. So I didn't plan on it, but I mean, I'm just very grateful that I sort of decided to give it a try, and then went from there. I certainly was not one of those kids who was like, I'm going to write a book at like 8 or 9. There are certainly people who do that, but that was not me. I didn't know you could.
Yeah, a lot of authors from kind of, I'm guessing, same kind of generation, especially with the Buffy love as well, because I'm a huge Buffy fan. A lot of authors from the same kind of generation have said exactly the same. So I never knew how to be a writer, because back then we random. That was
It was just you walk into a bookstore and books are on a shelf, and until we had access to the internet to be able to ask questions and things like that. What are you're looking it up in a card catalog or an encyclopedia? It's all very opaque, right? You don't know. I remember, wasn't it Beverly Cleary a long time ago had a book called like Dear Mr. Hinshaw, where it was a kid writing to an author. And I remember that thinking, but the idea of being able to create something and send it out to people that you've never met, and that is the process by which this happens. It was a completely alien idea. So I just didn't know. I mean, when I graduated from college, I had written my first book, which is terrible. It is a terrible book. It's a terrible book, but I didn't know that at the time. And I went to my college professors and I was like, hey, I did this thing. I was an English major. I don't know what to do next. And so they kind of point me in the right direction. At that point, things were starting to start up, and you could do some digging around and find out how to query agents and all of that stuff. But it just wasn't a thing. I just didn't know. And I'm so grateful now. There are so many people out there who, Beth Revis, who's a wonderful writer. She writes sci-fi. She had a Star Wars book, I think, come out last year. And she just provides all kinds of information up to new writers. And man, I wish I would have had her when I was starting out.
The community is nice. It's so many people are willing to help each other. It's nice to see. So what was you aiming to write originally? Because you've done a lot of YA, so you've done some mystery books and some sci-fi, some contemporary, some romance. So obviously you were reading horror when you were younger, but was you more of a sci-fi reader, romance reader yourself as well?
I read everything, most everything. I always say that I have not read a Western yet, just because I don't know. That's a specific genre, but I love all kinds of things. So I think I just wanted to tell. My goal is always to tell a story that I want to read. There's some great quote, and I want to say it's by Toni Morrison. I might be wrong about that, but it's something like, write the book that you want to find on the shelf. Like, look for it, and if you can't find it, you write it. So my first books, were things like sci-fi romance, which I loved, where you have someone falling in love with a very handsome alien, because why not? And I've written mysteries, but I think it's all about the stuff that interests me. So I've sort of bounced around, and I'm very lucky that I have had the good fortune to work with people who are not like, oh, you only have to write one thing and it's this one thing. So I've been kind of all over the place, but there are common themes. Certainly, I love writing sci-fi. I'm fascinated by it. Romance, people sometimes really get mad at me for that, but I'm like, there's always going to be a hint of it somewhere, because you know what? We're humans, and emotions are part of that. And part of that is also, when you're dealing with romance, you're dealing with vulnerability. And a lot of times that's how you show character growth, is somebody willing to be vulnerable with someone else. So there's that in almost everything that I write, just because I enjoy it. So I'm a little bit of everything.
So yeah, that is quite a lot of the kind of start of Dead Silence. I'm 6 chapters through in that one. There is a lot of romance, or kind of potential romance to happen in the story as well, which I can see the romance line in there. Cool.
Yeah, see, well, I wanted that to be there, because again, you're dealing with Claire, who does not trust people, does not open up to people. She wants those things, but can't quite get there. So, and for reasons in her past that will make sense. But yeah, and plus it's just kind of fun. You're out in space, nothing else to do.
Exactly. Well, let's go into it. Let's go into Dead Silence. So, where did the idea for this one come about? Was it more kind of reading movies, because there's kind of like a feel of Alien, but feel of kind of Dead Space, and there's a lot of kind of different things all in kind of one encapsulation. So where did the idea of this one come about?
Influences in there. Event Horizon, of course, is one of my favorites. Ghost Ship was an influence. The movie Ghost Ship, especially, that's got the best opening ever.
Oh, that Death Silence is amazing.
Fantastic. It is so good. And Aliens, of course. And Aliens, to me specifically, what influenced that was, I love the part of the movie where Ripley's woken up and she's trying to explain to the corporation, to the company, don't do this. Don't go back out there. You need to believe me. So I wanted to set the book up that way, because Claire is trying to talk to people to explain to her employer, you can't, there's a problem. This is what happened. So I really was heavily influenced by that. But in terms of the inspiration, this is going to sound really weird, but I am one of those people who's been obsessed with the Titanic forever.
Mm.
I would not have ever gone down, like, even though now I don't think they'll ever do that again, and they possibly shouldn't. And there's all kinds of
Yeah.
controversy around it being a mass gravesite, and do we preserve? What do we preserve, and how do we do it? But I've always been interested in that, and so to me, this was kind of like a chance to explore the Titanic, but in space. So that was really my impetus, was like, could I write a story that I just want to read, that I would love to experience? So that's really what it was. The pitch for this one was the Titanic meets The Shining set in space. Because is there anything creepier than haunted hotel? I don't know. It's a haunted hotel in space, essentially. So
It's a haunted cruise ship, which is, that's as scary
exactly
as
what
it
it
is.
is.
Even
Exactly.
if it was just like a cruise ship out at sea lost, it's still creepy because you're in the middle of nowhere. So evil, it's just, instead of the sea, you're in space. It's, still have that lost feeling.
And there's nowhere to run. Like, that's the thing. That's what I'm always interested in. It's like, whether you're in space or out in the middle of the ocean, what are you going to do? You can't get away. So I think that adds to that sort of claustrophobic, trapped feeling. And I love that. I think that's it's just so much fun to play with.
I love the setting. The setting is really good, especially when they kind of get to the ship in chapter 5, and it's, I don't want to spoil much, but body parts, but and that starts to set it, and it's. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, but I'm really enjoying this, which I never thought I didn't think I'd ever say about sci-fi horror.
What I wanted to do, and I've talked to my editor about this, is I really wanted to write accessible sci-fi horror or accessible space horror. In other words, you do not need to be a devoted fan of space or sci-fi to enjoy this story, I hope. And I hope you, certainly, if you are, great, welcome. That's great. Same thing with horror. It has horror elements in it. It is a horror story, but you don't have to be somebody who enjoys blood and guts and whatever all the time to be able to enter this story and enjoy it, hopefully. So accessible is sort of my goal with that, because I feel like, to me, the thing that makes things scary, or that makes you care about characters, that's the stuff that I want, and less focus on the technology, which sci-fi kind of tends to get hung up on. I'm not interested in that. I don't. If people ask me how do the engines go, I have no idea. The engines just go. They just go. So, and I know that frustrates some more like devoted or hard sci-fi writers and readers, but that's what, the caring about people and seeing bad things potentially happen to them and try to get themselves out and grow in the process is what I'm aiming for.
I think that helps with this story as well, because again, as a fan of horror coming into sci-fi, it's a nice transition, and I found it such an easy transition into it. You forget that it's in space, so you don't have all the kind of, like I said, the tech stuff, and it's like 20 chapters of the how the ship runs,
right?
And that's nice, and I'm enjoying that. So that's why I've stuck with it as much as I have, because I intend to go for a couple of chapters. Obviously, I get so many authors on, I don't have enough time to read enough books. But it does draw you in, and getting up to kind of where they start to reach the ship, you're already in. You're there. You're in. You know some of the characters. You know some of them are assholes. You know some of them. Have their
baller.
Yeah.
Baller.
Oh yeah, he definitely is. Yeah,
he is. Yeah.
The trust issues, the wanting to love but not being able to love, and trust and all that. So you're already in there, which is great. Which I'm hoping more sci-fi will be like this.
I just write what I want to read. So, and there are definitely other people who do that as well, and I'm grateful to them as well, because we're out here sort of kind of carving our own path. So
awesome. So I have to ask it because it's part of the podcast. Like I said at the start of the podcast, what we like to do is for all to pick 3 books they love, which is probably not the easiest thing to ask a librarian. So, what is your first bloody good read that you brought along today?
So today I brought you, and this was really hard, because some of the things I read and I love them and I remember that I love them, but I'm like, what exactly happens in this story again? Because I read so much. I'm sure you know.
Hmm.
I'm just, it kind of goes into a liked it box or a didn't like it box, and then that's
Hmm.
all I really remember. But these are ones that stuck with me or that I have read relatively recently. So the first one I have for you is The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher.
He was a very,
Um,
very good author. Not read that.
oh, she's amazing. I love everything that she writes. So, the Hollow Places. Do you want me to kind of give like a little bit of a summary
Yeah,
about
yeah,
what it's about?
yeah.
Okay. So this is what I mean about like people taking the time to create characters that you connect with. So the main character in this one, I think her name is Kara. She is going through a terrible divorce, and her job is not real stable. I feel like she's like a freelance graphic designer, I think. And she's just in kind of the middle of this terrible transition. She did not want to get this divorce. And her uncle, who she's been close with, has sort of like a roadside museum, which again, as a person in the Midwest in the United States, this is something I'm very well accustomed to seeing. It's like you drive by signs for world's largest ball of twine or whatever, or come see car hinge, or there's all these different
Mm.
crazy things that you can see out, especially in the Midwest where there's like nothing. So he has this roadside museum, and he wants her to come and basically, I think the initial idea is inventory. I think it's really more obvious that he's just trying to help her through a difficult time and give her a place to stay and get on her feet again. He ends up having to have surgery, so she's running this by herself, which is intriguing to me because that, as a character, then opens up more possibilities. Because one day she discovers a hole in the upstairs of the museum, and it has space behind the hole where there shouldn't be space, where it should be like it indicates that there's a room.
Hmm.
Um, Instead of brick. It should be nothing. The outside doesn't match the inside, in other words. And so she, I think, is thinking it's a tourist or whatever, that something happened. And for whatever reason, I'm trying to remember now how she ends up, but they end up going through, she and the guy who owns the coffee shop, who's her friend, they end up exploring, and this room opens up into a much larger building that shouldn't be there. And there's a door that leads outside. There's also kind of a juicy corpse, to use like he's like still deteriorating and it's gross and they don't know who it is. It's not like anybody's gone missing or anything. And when they get through this door on the other side, it's like this world that is similar to ours, but not. I want to say there's a school bus, but it's blue or
Hmm.
something. Like there's all these things that have kind of fallen into this other place that are not, that are similar to us, but not. So it's kind of a parallel universe, I assume, that's what it's, I don't want to give too much away. But
Yeah.
there are monsters, amazing, and it's got little bits of humor, and you care about the characters, and it's just fantastic. The Hollow Places is so good. I recommend it to, this is one we actually have at the library for the high school where I work, and I recommend it to kids all the time, and our copy is getting so beat up because they love it.
And she does cosmic horror so well as well. She's one of the kind of leading authors in that. We had her on in, I believe, 2020 when we first did the podcast. Actually, our 12th episode we did. It was actually for Hollow Place. And she's such an amazing lady to talk to as well.
I just find her, I love her writing. I think it's the Twisted Ones? The Twisted
Twisted
Ones is
Darts,
her
yeah.
other one, which scared me so badly that I had to put it aside for a while. Like I just couldn't. And that was great because also I'm a dog person. I have 3 dogs, and there's a dog in that story. And I was like, oh, the dog needs to survive. I'm not going to be able to manage this if the dog doesn't survive. So she's just fantastic. And I'm not much of a fantasy reader, and I have several of her fantasy novels in my stack just because I'm like, I know that I can read her stuff and
Yeah.
I'll enjoy it.
Like
So
you're safe with her writing style.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Very good choice. It's always nice to have a previous guest on a pick, so that's good. Okay, so your brand new book, Ghost Station, is out now. Does this one, is this linked to the previous book, or is it a completely standalone?
It's completely standalone. Some people have asked me if they're connected or in the same universe. It could be. I deliberately did not specify. There aren't any Easter eggs or anything like that. There's enough of a time gap and a technology advancement that none of the people who would be alive in Dead Silence would be alive in Ghost
Okay.
Station, just because yeah.
Like
So,
time John to, yeah. Okay, cool.
mhm.
So tell us a bit about the new book and the inspiration behind it.
Sure. So Ghost Station is the story of a team of people who are being sent to essentially fulfill a requirement of a residential requirement on a planet called Lyria 393C. And this is set in a future where corporations once again are leading the charge, which I suspect that is actually the way it's going to go. And I kept that theme through this one because that's what we're seeing in our world as well. And to kind of keep the larger corporations from taking advantage, from all the Amazons going out there and gobbling up planets and mineral rights and water and whatever else they can find. There's an international committee that has created like these rules. And basically one of the rules is you have to have a team in residence for a certain amount of time before you can claim it officially, just to keep people from gobbling. So this team is a residential and exploration team, an R&E team, and they're going to this planet. Our main character, though, is Ophelia Bray. She is a psychologist. She's employed by the corporation that hires this team because one of the corporation's goals is to keep everybody in tip-top shape. And we're dealing with a pandemic of kind of a psychological, physiological variety called ERS, which is based on a real thing called winter over syndrome. Essentially, when you're away from Earth and out of your circadian rhythms get out of whack and you aren't getting enough sun, and it can cause depression, anxiety, and even violence, and all kinds of things. So she is there because this specific team that's been assigned to Lyria, had a death recently. That might have been ERS, and like suicidal ideation, it can be contagious. So you've got to kind of watch it. So she's going not just to help them, but because she has some problems of her own. She's had a recent professional failure that has really messed up her life, and she wants to prove herself and help these people at the same time. But Ophelia's got issues. And the team has issues, and the planet is really weird. It is tidally locked, which means it only sees one side of the sun. Or the planet only, faces the sun on one side. And they land in what's called a terminal zone, which is where it's that strip between day and night. And it's cold and snowy and stormy, and they're going to be trapped together in this hab. And weird things have obviously happened at this hab before they even get there. And it's a lot of psychological fun in there because you're not sure exactly what's going on. Ophelia's not sure what's going on, and there are secrets. Everyone has secrets about what happened to their teammate, about what's happening now, and then in the larger world as well.
Cool. Very see a little bit of shine in there, kind of the madness.
a little bit of John Carpenter's The Thing. So just this kind of idea of these people were here and they seem to have left in a hurry.
Why?
That's probably not great.
But I'll go anyway.
Exactly. I gotta go, it's my job. So
cool. That is out now. So go grab your copy now. You can also get it on audiobook. You can get it on audiobook on Spotify as well as Audible now. So grab one of those now, as well as the book.
That's for sure is on Audible or is on Spotify. I'm not sure if Ghost Station is yet or not. I haven't actually checked. I should check.
You can buy it on Spotify.
Okay.
But you can't listen to it on the premium. But
premium. Oh, okay.
That's why I listened to Dead Silence first.
Okay, gotcha.
That's everyone I had. So okay. So let's go to your second, buddy.
And I'm going to pronounce it probably incorrectly because I'm not. It's Diavola, I think. And this is one. It's by Jennifer Thorne, and it just came out. I want to say last month, April, maybe, or maybe even March. I'm not exactly sure. And it is a haunted house, but it's a haunted vacation house. It's a villa, and I am a sucker for a haunted house story. This is the main character is a twin. Her family is difficult to say the least. She's not had the easiest life. They're all getting together at this villa in Italy. Everyone's kind of flying in separately. She's like, okay, I'm just going to get through it. It'll be fine. She actually goes early and doesn't tell them that she's going to be in Italy. She's staying somewhere else because she wants a few days to sort of hang on to her sanity before she goes. But it's haunted. It's haunted. And the problem is that she is sort of the black sheep in her family. And she figures out what's going on and says, this is, we're in trouble. There's danger here. And there are little kids there because her sister has children. And nobody believes her. Nobody believes her because she's had such issues. And so it was just fascinating, both as a haunted house story, and this idea of a town that kind of grows around a haunted house and the traditions that they have to keep the specters at bay, but also it's about family and your role in the family and how families are just sometimes screwed up, and even when you're trying your best, all of those messed up dynamics come into play. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
I've not heard of this one. This has gone under my radar. So no, definitely want to check it out. I've just been checking out her website as we're talking, and I think this is her first horror as well. No, second horror. Second horror. She got Luke.
Which I haven't read yet. I just know this one, and as it happens, it's Nightfire, which is my publisher too, but I got it through a book club that I belong to, Aardvark. And I just loved it. I initially looked at it because I don't know how well you can see, but look at the creepy face on the
cover.
It's a brilliant. It really is. It's so creepy.
I mean, I know you never judge a book by its cover, but I'm a sucker for covers.
Yeah. I mean, we all say that, and I like that as a metaphor for a person, but as a book, no, we're judging books by covers. We definitely are.
Definitely. But Tor Nightfire have amazing covers. They're like Titan in the UK.
They do.
Titan in the UK have perfect covers. Normally, if you get if a book comes from Tor, it tends to go to Titan. So you get two different.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a good choice. I'll check that one out because again, it's one that's gone underneath my radar. I've been more crime recently, so a couple of horrors have kind of slipped.
Fair.
Cool. So what are you working on next? Are you staying with the sci-fi horror theme, or are you going somewhere a little bit different?
Well, I'm writing something different right now that I can't talk about yet, but I do have one more space horror novel coming out in April 25, called Cold Eternity, and I had so much fun writing this book. Some books are just like that, where it's just you're sort of giddy the whole time because you're like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is the story of a woman, Hallie. She is running from a political scandal that has basically put her in trouble with both sides of the political spectrum. And she is trying to hide. And one of the places that she ends up is that she basically takes a job as a caretaker to sort of stay under the radar, is a dead ship. And a dead ship, the name of it is the Elysian Fields, but that doesn't really matter, except that it's what it was a ship in which you had kind of a charismatic leader who had a lot of money built through technology and whatever, who basically said, hey, rich people, if you buy a spot on my ship, we'll cryogenically preserve you, which we don't know how to wake you up yet, but we'll figure that out. And then if you're dying of some disease, we'll cure you of that once you're awake. So join me, give me all your money into this trust, and we're all going to be on this ship for, however long, but, we'll wake up and we'll live forever, essentially. The problem was that was 150 years ago, and technology didn't advance in that direction. We don't know how to wake people up. We don't know how to cure all these diseases yet. But the ship is still out there because the trust still exists. The money is still there. So a lot of living relatives who are trying to fight against it. But for now, it just circles around with these people in this, in their cryogenic tanks. My sister, by the way, calls this my Mummy Meets the Storage Wars story. So Hallie, who is looking for a place to hide, applies for this job. She's familiar with it because it was open for a while as a museum when she was a kid, took a field trip there. She's like, this is great. I'm going to hide out here. No one will look for me here. Of course, the problem is once you get on there, it is creepy, and she's hearing things and seeing things that aren't possible, and it's super messed up. There's some AI stuff going on in there in terms of how we preserve ourselves for future generations. It was just it was a lot of fun. Again, dealing with this idea of what are we willing to do to live forever, and how far are we willing to go? And it was fun.
Cool. Again, it's a lot of themes that does kind of on the edge of horror, which it's not good. Yeah, put it into a different setting. It's fun. I like this. Yeah, that sounds like a really good one. That one. So that's next year that comes out. One. Yeah. So
yes, cool. I think the release date right now is scheduled for April 8th, 2025. I mean, sometimes there's a little flexibility depending on printing and all that stuff, but that's what the schedule says right now.
Awesome. So go check that out when it comes out in 2025. You've also got Go Station out, so go grab that now. Yes. And yeah, you got so much to catch up on before this book comes out. Go and pick them both up.
Thank you.
Cool. So the final one. So what is your third and final bloody good read?
So my third and final one is one from one of my favorite horror authors, Rachel Harrison. It's Black Sheep.
I have that on my bookshelf right now. I haven't read it yet.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have to fangirl out a little bit because I love her books. I found her first one, The Return. I think that's her first one. I think it was back like when the pandemic was on, and I don't know even how I came across it, but I loved it because it was a twist on what I thought was going to be. And I love thrillers. I read a lot of thrillers, but I thought this was, two friends or three friends are getting together. One of the friends has been missing for 2 years, and you're like, oh, it's going to turn out that like, she was being held captive in like one of the other friends' basements by a husband or something like that. It is so not that. It is so not that. It has got this supernatural horror twist in there that is just phenomenal. So I have been a devotee ever since then. And this one I liked in particular because this is about a girl who is raised in an ultra religious community. She has left, but she receives an invitation for her ex and her cousin, who is also her best friend. They're now getting married. And she feels like she has to go because they sent an invitation. Her mother is famous for being a former scream queen in horror movies. And now she's part of this kind of religious cult. That's definitely the impression. They don't use that word, cult. But what I like about this is I'm a pastor's kid, so I grew up within religion, and I know, the expectations that people have of you being involved in a religious community and that sort of thing. So I was expecting this to go a certain way, and I can even tell you, and I will not spoil it because it deserves to be read the way that it was meant to be read. Like page 48, it like hooked a sharp left, and I was like, yes, this is amazing. I was just like, okay, is this really the way this is going to be? And blah, blah, blah. But nope, it just went your own this way. And it was fantastic. It's just so good. And I love her stuff. But this one I think is, if it's not my new favorite, it's right up there with The Return. That's just how good it is. It's wonderful.
Awesome. And this was in our sponsor box. A Bottle Book Club is our sponsor, has been since we started, but that came in 2 boxes ago, and it's just sitting there waiting for my next read. But yeah, I've heard amazing things about it, and it's got such great reviews, such amazing reviews. So looking forward to it.
It's so good. It's so good, and I'm just it's one of those where I'm disappointed that I can't read it again for the first time. It's really wonderful, and I'm eagerly awaiting. I think her next one is, it's out in the fall, and I think it's something about, it's So Thirsty, and it's a vampire story, I think.
Yeah.
And I need it. I need it. So I'm just gonna try to patiently wait.
Befriend the publishers. That's what you need to do. Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast this week. Go and check out Ghost Station, out now, and also go and check out Dead Silence as well. A lot of people who listen to the podcast or listen to YA as well, so go and check out all of S.A Barnes' work. Where can people find you if you'd like to be found?
Okay. Well, the social media wise, pretty much I'm really only on Instagram, which is at author Stacey Cade. And Stacey Cade was my pen name for YA and romance, and we just sort of expanded and put everything under one. But I do have threads under that same name, and I think I'm just at Stacey Cade on Twitter, but honestly or whatever Twitter is called now. But mostly it's probably Instagram is the best way to reach me.
Cool. And I'll put a link into the description below as well.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Again, thank you for coming on the podcast this week. A huge thank you to our sponsor as well, Audible Book Club. We just mentioned them with Rachel Harrison's book. You get some great books in these boxes. I'm still waiting for this month's box to come through, which is probably next week now. Thank you to Audible Book Club. They're the UK's best and biggest UK horror and thriller book box service, bringing a wonderful haunted bookshop straight to your door each month. You can get the Bare Bones box, which is just 2 brand new books and a possibly haunted second-hand book. Or you have got the Full Guts box, which is 2 brand new books, a possibly haunted second-hand book, and you also get some UK snacks. You get drinks, you get bookmarks, sometimes canvas bags. I keep going on about this, badges, and all amazing stuff in there. So go and check them out. again, you've got stuff like Rachel Harrison's book in there. You have Erica Rocker's books have been in there before as well. I'm so hoping that is in the next box. We'll find out. You'll get signed copies of the books as well. So if you are a huge reader and you're looking to get signed copies of the book, go and check out this and use the code BloodlyGoodReads at checkout. They have sponsored us since the first episode of this, even back when we used to do Snake by Horrorcast. So go and check them out now. Bottle Book Club at craigdrill.com in the description below, as always. You can also catch me over on Twitter at BloodlyGoodReads, and Instagram at BloodlyGoodReads. I think I'm over on Threads still. Let's say I am at BloodlyGoodReads. And also somewhere on Facebook. You know the usual by now. And also check out our movie podcast, Bloody Good Screen Movie Club, where myself, Noel, Marcus, Taz, and Hunter Shea now, for some reason, are going to be reviewing films, good or bad. We have forced somebody else to pick films this time around because somebody keeps moaning that we don't do good films. So Niall's choices this month, which is Evil Dead Rise, and Marcus's girlfriend picked this one. She wants to push. We made her choose. So we've got Fantasy Island from Netflix as well, which is going to be awful, and you know it's a Blumhouse one. So go check that out. We've also got a special episode coming up as well with Hunter Shea and that horror bitch as well. Kira is coming on here. She has been a reviewer for us for a while. Go check her out on Instagram at the horror bitch. That's her. I'll leave that to why she does that. But she's coming on to do her first podcast appearance as well. Hugely behind a lot of horror fiction as well, so she'll be a great addition to talk about films with me and Hunter. There you go. That's all the things we've got coming up recently. A lot of more authors coming up. We've got so many episodes booked in, so many amazing authors, crime and horror. So keep listening. We're here every week, and I've been your host, God, and I'll see you next time.
I've got a little task for you. Oh, for fuck's sake! What have I done? I can sweat myself into the kettle.
Thinks cheese is spicy.
I have printed out some pamphlets.
Joy to the world.
He's not trying to kill Mother!
It's my wedding day.
Well, let me tell you something, Mother!
What the fuck is that?
The chances of making it to 0 to none when you're dealing with budgeons and dragons.
My name is Hamburger. I have a gun.